Now, we understand the Electoral Commission is yet to be officially informed of the Supreme Court's order. Now, do you think this will affect the validity of the election in the long run?
Well, we have a couple of days to the official dates for the rerun.
Yeah, Tuesday.
Now, the Supreme Court, what the Supreme Court has done is not to issue an injunction stopping the rerun. What they've simply done is to halt the rerun. I think a temporary measure to enable the party who has complained of irregularity to come forth with his facts. And if he's unable to come up with facts that would enable the court issue an injunction, then I think the date for the rerun should not be scuttled. It will go ahead as planned.
Interesting. Yeah. Let's talk about George Weah, the former footballer, who was really popular in his country. It appears he's leading in the election already. But what do you think his chances are? Do you see him as someone who can really pull this off, if at all?
I am worried because of a pall of a cast shadow on Weah's chances or his run in this election. That's because he's running alongside the wife of the convicted Charles Taylor. And there is an alliance, as it were, between his party and the party of Charles Taylor. So you would see that Charles Taylor still has a hold, whether you like it or not, and that's dangerous. He still has a hold on the regions where he has a big followership. And you would wonder that as recent as January, Charles Taylor made a phone call to his supporters in Liberia for them to be steadfast. And again, you begin to see a hand behind the scene directing affairs in Liberia. So
it's really interesting. If Charles Taylor can still have some kind of influence.
Well, it's becoming a fashion for people to direct the destinies of people from prisons, and it's something that should bother us. And so if we begin to see some form of actions being taken in Liberia on account of the influence, the looming influence of Charles Taylor, it should be a cause for worry. It means, of course, that the people still owe allegiance. And because of the state of anomy that Liberia is yet to come out from, people are still interested. Someone said in Liberia that the booming of guns, the days of the booming of guns, is far better than the days that they're experiencing now. It's a sign of frustration. So I worry about his chances are, well, from what we see, the likelihood is that he may win the elections. But thereafter, what happens? Does it mean that Charles Taylor, his wife, and his party are going to be in charge of what happens in Liberia? Are we going to have a throwback to the revolutionary days? It should worry any right-thinking person.
So we're just waiting for the rerun and of course to go on as planned as Tuesday. And you rightly said that perhaps it is possible that it will go on.
May go on.
But it all points out to the fact that people still have to be on their toes, like you've also said.
Absolutely, they must be on the watch out.
The international community, what do you think they can do in all of this? I mean, again, observing, aside just observing from what is going on.
I think the biggest investor and the peace, and the fragile peace in Liberia today is the West African sub-region. They should worry about what's going on in Liberia, because this is going to be about the first transition, possible transition after a couple of decades that Liberia is going to have. So it should bother them. And I think it's important that they intervene in terms of what's going on in the judiciary and the Electoral Commission to ensure that the process is allowed to play out. Allowed to play out.
All right, Mr. Ejetel Tuonio, legal practitioner and public affairs analyst, thank you so much for your time on the program.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Protests have broken out in Eritrea's capital Asmara, with reports of shooting in the city. Now, the protests were staged by students of a community-funded Muslim school who, according to reports, were angered by the interference of government authorities in the governance of the school. When the Ministry of Education attempted to regulate the school, it was met by fierce resistance from members of the school's board parents and students, even as the school's chairman and other members of the board were reportedly arrested. Eritrean security forces say their arrests seem to have triggered the protests. Our South African National Prosecution Authority on Friday is expected to argue for Oscar Pistorius to be given a longer jail sentence. Now, the NPA says the 6 years he's serving for killing his girlfriend is shockingly low. The authority will present its case to a one-day hearing at the Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein, where judges are expected to hand down their ruling at a later date. A 30-year-old Oscar Pistorius, whose conviction was upgraded from culpable homicide to murder in the year 2015, will not be in court on Friday. The Paralympic athlete shot dead Reeva Steenkamp in the early hours of Valentine's Day in 2013 when he fired 4 times through the door of his bedroom toilet, an act he says came from mistaking her for a burglar. Let's go to Tunisia now, where large numbers of police have been deployed to Bardo Square, where a suspected militant Islamist was arrested after stabbing 2 policemen near the nation's parliament in the capital, Tunis. The Interior Minister said 1 policeman was wounded in the neck and was rushed to the hospital for treatment, while the other was only lightly wounded near the Bardo Museum. In March 2015, the museum came under attack, with gunmen killing 24 people. Tourists also came under attack at the beach resort of Sousse later that year, when 38 people were killed. Since then, security has been boosted at strategic sites, and Tunisian authorities have dismantled dozens of militant cells. Now, the UN refugee body says at least 5,000 people have fled Anglophone-speaking parts of Cameroon, where there have been a series of anti-government protests, into neighboring Nigeria. The UNHCR says other people may be trapped in forests on the Cameroonian side as they attempt to cross the border. It says it's working with the Nigerian authorities on a contingency plan to provide assistance for some 40,000 people arriving in Nigeria, though it is worried that numbers might go up if the problems in the Anglophone-speaking part of Cameroon continue. Still to come on the program, Russia signs deal with Nigeria to build and operate 2 nuclear power plants to boost Nigeria's electricity supply. Do join us again.